Gentleman's recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And with so much discussion of the pardon power, I was interested in learning its origin and the nature of the debate that occurred among our founding fathers on the question. And actually, there was no question as to the absoluteness of the pardon power. The question was whether or not that power should be exercised at the federal level or among the several states. It was Alexander Hamilton who believed the president ought to have federal pardon power. It was, I believe, Jefferson who argued for that power at the states. Which is interesting to me because our founding fathers were so skeptical of the absoluteness of any power that was maintained by the King of England, and so to bring that over to these new United States seemed odd and abstract to me. What I learned is that the graciousness and absoluteness of the pardon power was not in question. And actually, the pardon power was first used in the 7th century by King Ian of Wessex. And the reason the king used the pardon power was that the courts that had been set up by the king had been deemed so unjust by the people, that they'd gotten such poor rulings out of their courts, that if the king did not have the power to pardon people and relieve them of punishment, there was a fear that the regime itself could be in jeopardy, because there'd be a rising up by the people. And so I find that particularly instructive in these times. I look at a judicial system that is becoming excessively entangled in the activities of the executive. The Constitution lays out that the conduct of the sitting president is the purview of the Congress. We have the exclusive power to impeach or not to impeach. When Donald Trump is done being president, Article III courts can have at him, in my view, but there is no constitutional basis for Article III courts to have this jurisdiction. And so I think one could reasonably argue that in order to restore the balance that exists and to preserve Article I powers to oversee the conduct of the president, that the president would have the power to pardon himself and might need to, in fact, use that power for the very purpose that the pardon was contemplated, to ensure that we do not have such corruption and such bias in the judicial branch, such that that does not permeate and lead people to revolt against a system that they believe is corrupt. This is the reason why the pardon power exists. It's the reason why our founding fathers universally accepted the absolute nature of the pardon power, and I believe it would be improper for our committee to impair that. I yield back to balance.
Would the gentleman yield?
Certainly.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. I wanted to follow up on some of our colleagues on the other side of the aisle that were, again, referring to the Russian interference, and I would agree the Russians did attempt to interfere in our election, and most of us are on multiple committees. I happen to be on Foreign Affairs Committee.